Hi, it's April 30th, 2019. I wanted to talk to you about gang stalking and organized stalking. Um, I'm going to read off of my notes here because I want to make sure I get everything to you. All of this is on my blog at mindcontrolinformation.blogspot.com. No one else, or very few, are going to share the same views on gang stalking. My opinion comes from 18 years of experience and seems to be unique on the internet. I don't want you to waste time discovering gang stalking through trial and error. Please take note of their capabilities and be aware of them because they can keep you from appearing delusional in front of the rest of society. An unaware target is going to get slammed by electronic stalkers and made to look crazy unless they know what the technology can do and can navigate the harassment to maintain their sanity. You think you hear things within earshot and incorrectly assume by not visually confirming the source. You may hear things outside your house, in traffic, or behind your back that are computer generated and constructed. The only way to really be sure is to visually confirm what you hear. Initially, you reach for any answer to electronic harassment other than mental illness because the symptoms are slightly different and you incorrectly assume the harassment can't be done wirelessly. It is extremely easy to incorrectly blame the wrong people because they are so terrible and you would rather accept the constructed source than think you are mentally ill or the victim of electronic harassment. Furthermore, the TI community is a peer pressure group promoting gang stalking that is designed to keep you preoccupied with disinformation, confused, and helpless. They will either purposely mislead you or reinforce paranoia due to a lack of experience or organization. Gang stalking and organized stalking is a symptom of paranoia associated with electronic harassment. It is a farce designed for disinformation. Gang stalking and organized stalking is fake and meant to confuse and deceive. Gang stalking is the deceptive term and technique used to sway and divert your thinking or attention from the original source of the harassment to a convenient alternative. Consequently, this leads to either an altercation or continued obliviousness. If the altercation is not resolved, the obliviousness continues and the targeted individual has the ability to spiral downward due to a lack of information. Not only is the deceptive technique used to confuse and disorient, it tarnishes the reputation of the targeted individual as they discuss the disinformation or misinformation with friends, family, and authority figures. Gang stalking, as associated with electronic harassment, is a fabricated term used to attribute blame onto some arbitrary, convenient source. The term was coined by someone who didn't know what they were talking about or who intentionally wanted to misinform the target or the public. All claims of gang stalking with altercations with friends, family, co-workers, and especially neighbors are a convenient and sane direction to project blame. These are, in fact, constructed scenarios with auditory hallucinations or sounds reinforcing a false paranoia. Targeted individuals should be aware of this in their journey sorting through reality from the constructive, deceptive games played with their precious lives. They should examine relationships with a pattern of assumed friction or blame and not assign fault, as they were perpetuated and constructed. I had multiple perceived exchanges with neighbors in 3 different apartments. Knowledge and awareness can keep a targeted individual out of the hospital and alive for that much longer. I know some targeted individuals may be offended by the fact that gangstalking is constructed, but I urge them to please reconsider. Why would anyone risk getting caught by getting anywhere near you? They are more scared of you than you are of them. They are not hacking your computer, tapping your phone, or even stalking or following you physically. They have access to your brain, which informs them of what is going on in your life, and they can mimic sound to feel as if it is coming from within earshot or a specific direction. They are aware of your thoughts simultaneously with you because they are eavesdropping on your brain. They take advantage of odd happenings and make them appear as if they were coincidental or they are the source of the blame. They are trying to misinform and provoke you simultaneously. Electronic harassment is known as an invisible crime, while none of the perpetrators physically come near you, but rather make it appear as if people around you are harassing you. Excuse me. No one would come near you or gang stalk you if the crime was invisible. That would be visible and would contradict the description of being an invisible crime. Gang stalking is constructed in the targeted individual's minds, making them appear paranoid or delusional, while perpetrators manipulate them from a distance. The gang-stalking voices mimicked are the same as the ones they use to mimic your voice when they try to speak for you in your mind. They duplicate your voice exactly to speak for you in your mind and in an effort to steer the subject matter in a controlled direction. However, before you were attacked, do you ever remember hearing your voice in your mind? They do it without you noticing, and you adopt it because it is identical to your voice. Knowing that they can do that in an effort to speak for you, it is very easy to understand that they can mimic voices of your neighbors and speak for them. Once they successfully establish your neighbor's voice, they exploit it to instigate disagreements and cause stressful incidents. In addition, they take credit for every unexplainable occurrence to make you feel as if you are helpless, physically being stalked, and having all of your rights trampled. They also love to take credit for all of your computer issues because those can rarely be tracked as to the source and explained, and it is simple to irritate someone who is frustrated with their computer. The thoughts of targeted individuals are tracked by 2 people at a time constantly. I notice that they change shifts every 4 hours. The person on my left shifts over to the right, and a new person arrives to the left. Targeted individuals are stalked by a large number of people. However, they do it electronically, 2 at a time, and from a distance. They will continue to instigate confrontations with the people around you until you are aware of the extent of the technology. I have a couple of examples here I'd like to read to help illustrate my points. A simple example of how easy it is for people to causing the harassment to confuse and create controversy is as follows. Imagine you are sitting in the living room of an apartment and you hear one of your neighbors walk by outside and say something. Right there, the voice is recorded for use in the future because they have the ability to mimic voices and project them into your head. After some time has passed, you will hear another noise outside of your apartment in the background. This time, they follow that noise with the mimicked voice they recorded earlier and voice content. The sound of the voice is controlled by them. In essence, they can use that voice to manipulate what you think you hear coming from outside. They can say provocative things to instigate disagreements between neighbors very easily. Another example is this. Occurs when they use low, muffled voices to deliberately make you think your neighbor is communicating or disturbing you through the wall of one of your rooms. They use a natural banging sound and then add mimic voices to provoke and irritate you, hoping to cause a confrontation. So in theory, you can have issues directly with your neighbors through the wall and with neighbors walking by your apartment. Another example is as follows. They attempt to take credit for all coincidences in your life. For instance, cars or people following you when they have just run into you more than once, coincidentally. However, nobody is following you physically because of the liability or the risk and the resources required to follow you 24/7. Further, you are just not that important to risk getting caught, and neither am I. Here are a few more examples of what they can do and what the technology is capable of doing. When you're inside, you hear mimicked voices from outside. They can mimic any voice you have ever heard. When inside, you hear voices through the wall, floor, or ceiling. They can make it sound like the noise or voices coming from a specific direction. You may think the voices are coming through a television, radio, etc. Logically, you deduce the voices have to be coming from the next logical source of noise you hear, which would be radio or television. Next, when you're outside, you may hear mimic voices from your car in traffic or in a crowded area. They can even confuse you in traffic when you're frustrated, using mimic voices to provoke you into road rage by pretending to be voices from aggressive drivers. Next, you may hear some of your innermost secrets that no one would know about discussed by other people in your near proximity. They have access to anything you are thinking of and can make it think like other people are talking about it. I'm going to go over my experience with gangstalking here. When you start hearing voices, naturally you look for a logical source. For me, I assume they hijacked radio waves and were talking to me through my radio, television, etc. They seemed friendly, so there was no immediate cause for alarm. When they started to get angry, the paranoia drove me to assume it was my neighbor. I first started hearing voices while driving my car from San Diego to Los Angeles. I thought the voices were somehow broadcasting through the stereo. Then the television when I returned home. The people speaking directly to me had to repeatedly assure me that I was not crazy, and they were speaking to me directly to my brain from a distance. They seemed friendly at first until they told me I was going to undergo a, quote, hair makeover, unquote, and things took a turn for the worse. Their hair makeover was supposed to be some sort of transformation of me into something they can manipulate and control without me being aware of it. I've heard voices through from what sounded like the walls of my apartment. They can direct your attention as to a false source or direction from which they are coming from. They can say something and manipulate where they want you to think the noise or voices originated. My mistake was not confirming the strange things I was hearing but not seeing. That was where I was vulnerable. Once I got off track, I appeared delusional because I was trying to explain a distorted reality that deviated from what was really happening. I've had perpetrators stalking me by sending voices into my head via V2K for 18 years and counting. I've had stalkers next door at 3 different locations. Attractive female living in the building next door, a businessman directly next door, and a younger group of 3 to 4 young men below my apartment. I've heard the voices of a woman crying outside my apartment and obnoxious sounds of neighbors downstairs. I've heard voices all night from neighbors in 2 different apartments. It was believable because of the time difference between the US and China. Our evening here is usually daytime in China, so it seemed plausible to me. The above-mentioned techniques were used successfully on me to make me look foolish. They were able to have me put on a 72-hour hold twice, and I had a restraining order issued against me due to the way I had behaved towards someone. Also, please note how easy it is for things to spiral out of control. Just remember, they can mimic any voice and make it sound like it is coming from a specific direction or source. They use this as a tool, gangstalking, to instigate conflict throughout your day. They aim to destroy the relationships you have with friends, family, and work. Gangstalking is used to isolate and make you appear paranoid and delusional. I'm going to talk just a little bit about how to stop gangstalking altogether and wrap it up. You can stop gangstalking altogether with a sound understanding of their capabilities because it illuminates and makes you aware of the ways they can deceive you. With time, you gain enough experience to decipher the origin of the sounds you hear and learn to dismiss anything that is unbelievable. Anything heard that you are not sure of, you confirm by communicating and inquiring by asking in a civilized manner to determine the true source. Life gets much less complicated when you eliminate the paranoia associated with gangstalking by confirming what you are hearing that is making you paranoid. By following up and investigating the unknown, you keep potential controversies from festering into delusional problems. The longer it takes you to investigate, the longer it takes to unravel the confusion. Always investigate, confront, and confirm in a polite manner to avoid gangstalking issues. I hope this helps. Thanks for listening. I feel actually a lot better getting that off my chest. Hope this all ends soon.